Let's talk about some of the common misconceptions or assumptions made around imposter syndrome. Let's first of all focus on the name. Imposter syndrome can make it feel like there's something wrong with us. It sounds like a bit of a medical term, which is why it's often termed imposterism, imposter phenomenon, imposter experience. The main piece is this imposter feeling, this feeling of being found out, that I'm not as good as people think. In my experience working in this space for the last 5 years, having written 4 books on the subject and worked with thousands of women across different, and men across different organisations in this space, have really opened my eyes to what I'm seeing contradict some of the common misconceptions and assumptions that are being made of late. So quite often these days we're hearing, stop telling people they've got imposter syndrome, stop investing in women in leadership programs, and actually just focus on making your workplace culture an equal one and fixing your broken systems. And whilst I think, yes, that's a great idea, I'm also acutely aware of the fact that we've been doing that for over 100 years already, and we've still got a long way to go. So supporting people with imposter experience and supporting women in leadership roles is super impactful. In fact, it's critical. And it isn't the same thing. We shouldn't have, one doesn't mutually exclude the other. So it's not about fixing our systems or investing in this stuff. It's about both. Because even if we do fix our systems, you will find that there's support that still needs to happen in this space. Imposter syndrome doesn't exist because of bad workplace culture. It exists in good workplace culture too. And the way I see it, the work that I do bridges that gap. It supports people to exist within the cultures and the systems that they find themselves in, regardless of how perfect they are. Because our external environment is one thing. Our imposter experience, that's about our internal environment. That's about the way we see the world, the lens that we look through. So if our lens is clouded by self-belief, lack of self-belief, self-doubt, lack of self-efficacy, and a feeling of not being good enough, then it doesn't matter whether you've got policies around or quotas or so many women on your leadership table. These people are not going to feel supported to take that leap. We're not going to have the confidence to make that happen. So it's about addressing that and supporting people. I don't believe that telling people that they've got imposter experience is the same as telling them there's something wrong with them or needs to be fixed. It's a reality that many successful people talk about. It's not about fixing people, it's about supporting people. And I'm a big believer in being our best is not about having to be more or different, as so often we're told in the media. It's about uncovering what exists there already. And that's about removing that lens that's often clouded by our imposter experience to be the best that we can be. So if we do find ourselves in a toxic culture, our environment is unequal, if we have broken systems, then it's likely to exacerbate our imposter experience for sure, but it isn't the same thing. It doesn't our imposter experience doesn't exist because of those things. So take Ashley Bloomfield as a prime example. Privileged white male working with possibly one of the best leaders in the world, so we're seeing from the global recognition that she is getting, and yet still he openly admits suffering from imposter experience and having self-doubt. So it's less about our external environment and more about our internal. And let's face it, we don't always have control of our external environment, particularly as a minority group. We're not given the power often to change that, but what we can change is ourselves, is our thinking around removing that lens of feeling inadequate to see how amazing we are, to build our confidence in that space, to have bigger influence and impact that might just mean we go on to be the change we want to see in the world, which is why I think it's even more important we have these conversations. So just recently, I was speaking at an event with Ashley Bloomfield, and he talked about a person in the government who came up to him and said, "Hey, thanks for talking so openly about your self-doubt, because now I can see myself in your shoes. I didn't think I could be a successful senior leader like you because I had this self-doubt, but now I know you do too." This is the power of having that conversation, and I'd never want us to lose that. Investing in this conversation, having a label, it's something I see time and time again in the women that I work with. When we have a label for this, we understand it and we know what to do with it, we remove that lens of self-doubt. Without that conversation, that doesn't happen. So yes, your toxic cultures and broken systems might exacerbate your imposter syndrome. They are not the same though. So imposter syndrome isn't inequality, discrimination, bullying, bias. That exists on the external. So the internal is different. And it's not about trying to fix ourselves, it's supporting people to be the best that they can be, to take their place in however broken a system they find themselves in. Imposter syndrome or imposter experience is about self-belief, our self-efficacy, and our confidence in our own abilities. It isn't about fitting in or belonging. That's different. The one thing we have the biggest control over is ourselves, is how we think, and being able to support ourselves in that space to build our confidence, to get over our self-doubt, to build self-efficacy is then how we go on to create change.